I'm going to be talking today about the various ways that we use some automated processes to try to get a bit of a head start on lexicography at Oxford Dictionaries. I'll talk a bit, first of all, about how our business has changed over the last few years, which I think other talks have also covered quite a lot of detail today. So, dictionaries have changed. This was us 150 years ago. The world's first crowdsourcing project, the Oxford English Dictionary, and that's James Murray, one of the chief editors. Of course, the focus was very much on print. And for a long time, print dictionaries were really the focus for Oxford Dictionaries. There was a big move to the web, still going, of course. People still very heavily using online dictionaries. But I guess the big change of late has been dictionary data. Talks earlier on have referred to this. Language data is really where we're seeing the big changes for Oxford Dictionaries and I guess for the dictionary industry generally. So we've kind of in this position where what do we see as our content now? We have our dictionary entries, of course, but then all of these different pieces that make up what we do, from morphological forms to our corpora, to things that we create for our website, like grammar files. These are all content, and it's not just about the entry anymore. There are many different types of content and many use cases. And then for us, the other big shift that has happened over the last few years has been a move away from big focus on English to focus on what you might call major world languages, to broadening this out to be many more languages around the world, really. And so we've had this diversification of our use cases, of our languages, but we don't have unlimited resource. So what do we do to bridge that gap? And our response to that has been to try to automate more of the things that you might say machines do well, while focusing really on the bits that humans do well. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey through how our data goes through our systems and try to flag a few of the areas where we've tried to speed things along a little bit using our computational resources. So particularly with our English content, we're very proud of our corpus base for our lexicography. So you see the data coming in at the left-hand side. We compile these into our corpora, and then we use tools in Sketch Engine very heavily in Oxford Dictionaries. And of late, we've been developing tools on top of the Sketch Engine API to try to draw out some of that information in a more automated way, to kind of skip out some of the more some of the work that can be automated best, basically. And what I'm going to talk about here is the NWPE, which is the New Words Prioritization Engine. We have an issue for English, but also for other languages, where we have too many words. People expect us to have the latest vocabulary in our dictionaries, but we can't cover everything. We have a large body of editors from the Oxford English Dictionary and our current English dictionaries who produce suggestions every day. We have thousands of suggestions in our databases. We analyze against our other dictionaries to see what's missing in different data sets. And we have many, many words that qualify. Anything that we do in an automated way is going to produce far too many suggestions. So we need a way to get the wheat from the chaff. Searching through all these suggestions, it's not good use of human brain. We often miss the things that are actually highest impact because there's so much to look through. There are so many sources of data, it's very difficult to combine them all, and we have the problem where a different person will go back over the same grounds again and again. So, the vision of the prioritization engine is to have one place where we have all of this vocabulary, aggregating all of the information that we know from our various systems, and that includes frequency, includes dating. Of course, with the Oxford English Dictionary, we have a very strong historical database that we can draw on. We needed a way to record judgments so we don't keep going over the same ground again. In the end, use this to generate an automated prioritization score. But for now, we would start with unique word forms. So how this basically works is editors will have a list of words, which can be this short or thousands, and people have been uploading lists of thousands. They compile those into the prioritization engine and get an output that looks like this. So what we have here is the words down the left-hand side. If we click the plus side, the system automatically calculates possible variant forms, whether it's hyphenation or capitalization or inflections, and in a little drop-down, it'll give the scores for that too. We have frequencies from the NMC, which is our monitor corpus, the OEC, which is our balanced corpus, the Oxford English corpus, our incomings database. Very useful one, actually, is failed searches on the oxforddictionaries.com website. So how often have people been searching for this form and not finding it in our dictionary? It's a very good metric for us. Next section tells us if it is in our Oxford English Dictionary, oxforddictionaries.com, and Lemur, which is our database of new word suggestions. And then we see when it was first used, when it was first added to the system, and then finally the action is recorded. And actually, annexure, which I'm afraid I'm not able to tell you what it actually means, but it will be going into the dictionary very soon as one of the first things that has come out of this prioritization system. And then I'll be able to look it up and tell you what it means. We can also search and filter. So you could say, only give me something that has a frequency of, say, 10,000 in the corpus, but then doesn't appear in these various sources. So there are various ways of filtering. It was only rolled out to the editorial team a couple of months ago, so we're compiling feedback, but some plans that we have. Identifying senses. I know it's not a trivial matter, but we have some ideas about how we could go about doing that. It's straightforward enough to identify word forms that aren't covered. Senses is a whole world of difference. I mentioned developing a score, which once we know how people are searching, how people are filtering, and what is likely to produce a qualifying suggestion, we can automate that further. We would love to move to languages other than English. We have, if we have a corpus available to us, then we can apply the same system to that corpus and get data for that. And we may want to integrate this further with our editorial systems. So that is the prioritization engine. Next step that we have in our little data flow is our editorial team. We'll use the research tools that we have here and then apply these with our editorial tools. We use DPS for much of our editorial work. We have our own sentence dictionary tool, which is another tool that we use for a specific type of data set of example sentences. And more recently, we have started working with our sister company, Babla, particularly for Oxford Global Languages content. And the problem that we have for Oxford Global Languages, so Oxford Global Languages, for those of you who don't know of the program, it's a program to bring together language content for the world's languages and make this available through our systems. And during the first phase of OGL, which was a 2-year phase, we focused to a greater or lesser degree on languages where we had content available to us in OUP, to give us a bit of a head start, to use content that we knew was good quality, and also to focus on setting up the technology that we would need for the program in general, which was generally the websites and also Leap, which is our data platform for lexical content. However, that will only get us so far. We left the issue of content creation to one side for a time. So what could we do once we got to the point where we didn't have ready-made dictionary data available? How could we do that, but for many, many languages, many of which we don't have expertise in-house? As it turns out, I mentioned Babla, they've been dealing with a very similar issue for quite a long time. Their focus has really been on European languages, but they started off really as a website company that had to develop a lot of content quite quickly. And they have a good process in place for having people in-house in Hamburg, where they're based, on short-term periods, working to create a lot of content in a sort of systematized way. So we took that, and we used some of the tools that we have to automate the starting point for this. So again, we've got the sketch engine output to provide frequency lists from our corpus, from our English corpora. We've taken the Pocket English Italian dictionary, as it was a very well-structured dictionary, which was well sense-divided, editorial principles behind it, very sound, and then a lot of editorial work to refine that to create the English Language Framework, or ELF, which looks a little bit like this. Now, this is a work in progress, and it is also a spreadsheet. And that is deliberate. I mentioned we work with DPS for a lot of our content. We work with our other editorial systems. But for some languages that we're now looking at, and for this particular example, this is for the Marathi dictionary that we're working on at the moment, we needed something which had basically a lower technical bar for use. So spreadsheet allows us to have that. People can generally pick up and use a spreadsheet, fill in the column that we ask them to fill in. We can review that easily and send that around. Also, having a single framework that we've developed allows us to impose consistency, link between those data sets at sense level, and be sure that we're including the most frequent vocabulary. So we've got a system that we've created in a semi-automated way that we can then roll out for many editorial processes. And that sort of starting point in a semi-automated way for further post-editing is really where we focus at the moment in Oxford Dictionaries. From the spreadsheet output, we then convert all of our content through our language conversion pipeline. This is something that we've set up over the last couple of years to convert dictionaries from many, many sources, be they Word files, InDesign files, PDFs, you name it. We have had to process it, convert that data, and ingest it into Leap, which I mentioned earlier. So we hold that data together, and Leap has quite a strong RDF component, which we are experimenting with and have been over the past year or two. And that is in this box around data and link generation. So I'm going to just run through some of the experiments that we've made around linked data over the past couple of years and where we're seeing that going now. So we have been representing our content as linked data. I'm not going to go through this in a lot of detail, but if you are interested in the ontology that was developed in OGL, then I can send you a link to the paper which describes this in a lot more detail. But this is just an overview of how one of our entries looks. This is the entry for a book. We have taken our English morphological forms. We have a very extensive list of morphological forms, giving word and all its inflected forms for all of English. And it's drawn from our Oxford Dictionary of English and then supplemented heavily. We link that using the ontology that I showed to all of our English sides of our bilinguals. So that allows us to enrich the search for all of the Oxford Global Languages bilingual dictionaries that involve English. So this is just a screenshot from the English-Romanian dictionary, search for children, bringing up child. I mentioned the sentence dictionary earlier. The sentence dictionary is a very large bank of sentences that's linked at the sense level to the Oxford Dictionary of English. Because the Oxford Dictionary of English is linked to our English-Spanish dictionary, again at a sense level, we're able to traverse the graph to bring those sentences into the English-Spanish equivalent. And that allows us to have this entry for throw in English-Spanish. You see at the bottom here, these are the extra examples from the sentence dictionary, all assigned to the correct sense without the laborious task of having to remap them to every English-Spanish sense. When we have that great data already linked at a sense level, it's great to be able to make more use of it in different data sets. So that's what we've done here. Another use that we probably haven't made as much of as we could, the ontology can often flag up inconsistencies, data errors. Of course, because of our dictionary data coming from so many places in the end and covering such a long period of development, there are a lot of errors like this. So it's not necessarily the case that we would take each one of these and correct them. But we have done for certain categories. So the example I've given here is cross-references, where we, because the ontology was expecting something that didn't appear, we were able to identify all of those errors and correct a lot of those so that the links all work as they should. Dictionary reversal. So we have had some initial experiments into dictionary reversal. I think probably a lot of people here are familiar with the concept and the pitfalls behind dictionary reversal, but it's essentially to take a bilingual dictionary that covers one language direction, so say English, so Urdu to English, for example, as we have here, and then reversing that to create an English-Urdu dictionary. Now, of course, it's fraught with dangers and difficulties, but we did some experiments using the Urdu-English dictionary, the English-Romanian dictionary, both of these being dictionaries where we only have one side, so it would, of course, be a great benefit to create the opposite side. And we also used our Oxford Spanish dictionary as a sort of test case because it is bidirectional. It's a good dictionary, and we could try out many of the algorithmic processes on that and then apply it to the other languages. So how we done this? So our ontology has translation as a symmetric relationship at sense level, not at entry level, not at word level, only at sense level. When the data is fed into RDF, then a mirror data set is automatically generated. So that's this data set auto over at the right-hand side there. And it's, from that point, really ready for post-editing, but of course, anything that we can do to improve that is better. What we've found so far is the more structured the source data, the better the result. I think that might be possibly obvious, but certainly our experiments proved that. The Spanish dictionary is much more structured than the Urdu dictionary, which has, and there are things that you could do to improve that structure and you get a better result. So translations which are separated by commas, if you identify those as separate translations, then you'll have a better headword list on the other side. We can make good use of our other Oxford data sets for things like pointers towards parts of speech or labeling. For example, the English-Romanian I showed, we have a Romanian monolingual that we've actually licensed from another publisher, which we have made available online. And we have that in our data store too, and that has very good pointers towards what the Romanian English information might be. So we can use that as a reference or infer certain characteristics from that. And yeah, the more we link these data sets together, the better the results will become. And we have had some initial successes with algorithmic methods for identifying senses in the other side of the dictionary based on various clues from indicators, collocations, other information that's present in the source text. The more information that's present, the more that you can make of this. With all of these methods, you just need to keep iterating, changing some things and seeing how that improves the result. So we do intend to return to this, but we've just initial experimentation so far. Next things that we plan to do with linked data. What we've seen, the most straightforward thing from the earlier slides is making use of the really great English data that we have to improve other data sets that involve English, breaking down the sort of siloed nature of our data sets and trying to pass that information between them. So that could include pronunciation, where we have sound files and transcriptions for every English word in our English dictionary, but we don't really make use of that in our English side bilinguals. Semantic classifications, again, we have things like domain classifications for many senses, which we could be passing over. Also, more straightforward labeling, like register, region, that sort of thing. And one thing that we are looking more and more towards is just increasing the linking that we do between the data sets. The more we link, the more the sort of benefits will multiply, really. So that could be between a thesaurus and a dictionary, between monolinguals and bilinguals, using English as a pivot between bilinguals. In all of these cases, we have many links in place, particularly with the Oxford Dictionary of English. But the more we extend that, the better, really. And we, of course, should not forget that the endpoint is actually the products that we serve to our customers. So that's our API platform, which launched about 6 months ago now, and our websites, both of which run from Leap, the data platform I mentioned, and then our licensee data business. And then I should probably have another one there, which is the actual user on the right-hand side. But yes, that is, of course, the starting point for us. And that's it. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Very interesting. I'm wondering about the linked data. If I remember correctly, or please correct me, you did not adhere to an existing model, such as OntoLex.
That's true. Yeah.
So why and what do you do then?
I don't think it's true to say that we've diverged completely from OntoLex, but we did develop our own ontology, which was more like an extension of OntoLex. I think it's similar to the previous talk that we had, actually, where OntoLex serves for a proportion of the data we have, but there are certain aspects of it which it just did not cover. So left with a decision, do we just throw away that data as not relevant, or do we develop something further on that? But if you are interested in that, I mean, we do have a paper which explains all the thinking behind that, which I can send your way. It gives a lot more detail than I can really give.
Hello, thank you for your very nice presentation. Is the ontology publicly available?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And again, it's in the same paper, so I can send that over.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.